I've always thought of Tejas riders as the equestrian ambassadors for what used to be Tejas Council. It was a great way to get girls to learn about horses and also to teach them leadership skills and responsibility at the same time. And we had a lot of fun.
Tejas Riders was started by Joanne Fogg. Joanne had instructed Brady to do a parade in Dallas.
She called and asked if I could bring horses to a Red Ribbon Drug Awareness Parade that our board members was real active in. The Girl Scouts were real active.
We just grabbed a group of girls that were basically children of volunteers and took them to the parade, and everybody enjoyed it so much they wanted to continue with those girls' performances and appearances. It was one of a kind for, in the Girl Scout community.
Pat Stewart called me into the office and said that she wanted to do this little horse show program so we could kind of launch the Riders and Equestrian group, and wanted to know if I would be willing to help her out for a month. And I said, well, sure, a month, no big deal. And we started putting together a horse show.
I asked Joanne, I said, okay, what do you want us to call our group? And she didn't think for 2 seconds, and she said, Tejas Riders.
The morning of the horse show, which was the first weekend of March, never will forget that, it started sleeting about 6 o'clock. Well, by 7, there wasn't anybody that hadn't canceled on me. The only person that showed up with horses was Mr. Brownlow, who I had only met briefly at one time, and he only brought 6 or 8 horses.
And back in those days, we didn't have the drill team horses that we have now. We strictly had camp horses. So I loaded up camp horses and we trimmed them up as best we could.
And we only had about 6 or 8 girls signed up for the program at this time. So we put together a really mini version of the horse show, rode the girls around the arena a couple of times. Since we failed to do a good job, we decided that we would try it again. We really felt that this was a good opportunity. So we went to Betty Perot and did some equestrian training. We started out with the riders, and we had 3 goals. Number 1 was older girl retention. We wanted to offer the older girls something at this point because we were losing seniors, cadets and seniors really fast. The second goal was to put the Girl Scout, use the equestrian as a recognition venue, so at parades and horse shows and that kind of thing. And our third goal was to train girls to help Brady. That was the 3 goals we started with, and we accomplished them fairly fast because of the fact that we had the interest of the girls. And the program grew and grew. We started doing workshops, the Horse and Me, the Horse Fun, the Horse Fan workshops. We all offer, in the Daisy Days came out of that. These all are equestrian programs that we still are using that came out of the initial Tejas Rider committees.
It really began as an opportunity for us to get some more visibility for the council, to haul the horses to parades, and it really started to become a riding program, the Tejas Rider leadership.
After that, when they decided to make more of a formal program, they said, well, Christy, you're going to lead the drills. I'm like, okay. I didn't really have much of a clue what was going on. We had a big drill team clinic, and a lady showed up and taught us the original drill, and it just went on from there.
I was sitting there, and I always listened to patriotic music. So I got to sitting there and tapping my foot and nodding my head and thinking, we could do something with the horses to this music. So I got out a pencil and a paper, and I drew out little dashes for the horses going this way, and this way, and this is what they can do. And it ended up as the hectic drill. And then later we went on and designed the spinning wheel drill in pretty much the same way.
But that's kind of the background of where the Riders originally started, and we just grew it. It went from mentoring and teaching girls about horses to girls teaching us about other girls.
I think the hardest part for being a Tejas Rider for the girls in the program now is definitely learning the skills. It's easy to learn a lot about horses from reading books, watching movies, that kind of thing, but actually hands-on ground skills, riding skills, it's pretty tough if you don't have an access to your own horse every day.
Every horse has a different personality, and you had to adjust however you were riding in order to fit that horse personality and what you were doing and the skill sets that were required.
We do speed events at play days, and last play day we had a lot of people fall off, and we try to have a fun attitude about it.
And the start just came out, and I was like, well, there goes another day, another time, you know. So you just hang on and hope to God that you don't fall off.
I mean, that's always a challenge, but when you're riding the horse, you stay on it, and then when you get off, you generally get off at your own pace. When you fall off in front of other people, I always grew up kind of shy, and so you fall off and everybody's looking at you.
She fell off a few times. There was no drama, no hysterics.
The hardest thing was really just learning to pick yourself back up and dusting it off and getting back on the horse and not letting it affect how you reacted around other people.
You know, she just got up and brushed herself off, and you know, she was hurt, she took a moment, but there was still no, you know, I'm dying kind of stuff, and got back on. There was no fear, and if she felt it, I didn't know about it, and nobody else did either.
Because not only would the people that your peers and the people who you look up to be looking at you, but also the girls. It affects how they eventually go into the program and grow through it if they're in the Tejas Rider program. So that's probably the hardest part is just learning to it happened and move on and learning from that experience.
One weekend I came down there and he had a new horse and he wanted someone to try it out.
When Brady came up to me and told me that there was a horse that he wanted me to ride, but nobody else had gotten to try him first.
Without a doubt, when you pick a horse for a girl, you can guarantee one thing is they're going to work and they're going to love them. So that's the easy part of it.
Knowing that someone has that kind of confidence and courage in you and saying, hey, I want you to try a horse that no one else has had before, that was probably one of the proudest moments.
My favorite of all the years was Mary Ann. Not because she was a challenge to ride, she wasn't. She was great with the beginners, but I loved that horse because you could put a screaming, crying kid up on her and she'd take him for a trail ride.
Maxwell was everybody's favorite.
I rode a horse that was a Peruvian something or another, but he was gaited. He had an attitude too. He didn't like the other horses and he would kick at them when they would come up behind him. You know, it was like my space, but he was a cool horse. He was pretty and funky looking at the same time, but I loved riding him. So.
My favorite horse was named Blackjack. We had a really strong connection.
A horse that we currently still have that is my favorite is Buddy. And of course all the Tejas riders know him. He's just the most trustworthy horse that you can imagine.
Major became one of my most favorite horses that I've ever ridden out there.
Probably the one that gave me the biggest laughs was Kalijah. He was grumpy. If Grumpy Cat could be a horse, it would be Kalijah. And we finally learned when you were putting girls up on Kalijah, you had to leave him tied to the fence because otherwise, when you turned your rear end to him, he'd turn around and bite you.
There was one horse whenever I started, they couldn't get me off of him because I loved him so much. His name was Rusty.
Marguerite donated a horse to Camp Tiara, and Tiara's a Welch, and she's smaller, and she's still there. And my granddaughter rode her at summer camp, and she is too another pig.
They're just the most honest horse you can imagine, do the right thing in every scenario. So those are rare, but we do have some. Well, Tejas Riders has really evolved. It really began as just a performing group. Now it's a leadership program.
And really with Colleen Walker is really where the big push for the leadership in the girls has come from.
The biggest thing that we try to instill in our girls is leadership, service to younger girls, being a role model. So that's a prerequisite. If they can't fulfill that part of it, then they don't get to perform.
So the program it gives them all the foundations, but they definitely have to work.
To ride in that Grand Entry Parade, you must have met your work commitments. Well, Keely's on Blue Team this year. She plays varsity volleyball, and so she had not met the minimum requirement by the first play day, and she was not able to ride in on the Grand Entry Parade. which is kind of fun and important. And she knew that was going to be the situation, and she stood and she applauded and clapped and was such an encourager to all those other girls. And I just felt so proud that she realized it's not just about winning something or getting something. It's about being part of a bigger team.
Tejas Riders today is a little more advanced than it was, back when we first started.
We have 100 or so active riders now.
We've expanded each year with what we do as a performance.
We stayed on as coaches to help the program until the girls developed enough that they were able to start doing working with the younger groups, which is what they do now.
You get to have the opportunity to teach little girls how to ride horses, and you really get the opportunity to see them grow.
It just makes you feel good when you look back and you think we started all that, we got that going, we were able to offer those opportunities to those girls, and they have shined. They're a great group of girls.
The whole program is run by so many wonderful volunteers in addition to the paid staff, primarily Cindy and Brady Brownlow.
Brady, first and foremost, is probably one of the biggest mentors of all time in Girl Scouting.
Two of the obvious are Brady and Cindy. Whenever I grew up through the program, I was always able to look at them and see something to aspire to.
Marguerite and Christy Sparrow Party, she and Marguerite were both very instrumental in our junior high and high school ages.
Another person obvious would be my mom. She was there with me day in and day out.
Along with Katie Hammond, who did a lot of the celebratory weekend visits, and
we miss you, Katie. Marguerite Sakis and Beverly Littaker was my original Tejas Rider committee, and they taught me Girl Scouting.
But it's the whole package. She's learned respect, commitment, being where she has to be at a certain time no matter how tired she is or how late the volleyball game went the Friday night before.
But I think it changed her as far as being outgoing, and because she copied the girls that were out there and became confident like they did.
Hey, I could actually be like that. I could not necessarily be exactly like her, but learning something from her every day.
It's affordable. Gas money and my time, and my child has learned so much.
I've learned a whole lot more from them than they ever learned from me.
Had it not been for the Tejas Rider program, she probably would have left Girl Scouts.
I can definitely say that Tejas Riders made me a lot more of a leader than I would have been otherwise.
All the friends that you make, the lifelong lessons, the experience that you get that you really can't get anywhere else.
If we'd have had an equestrian program when I was a girl, I'd have lived out there.
And she has learned so much through the program.
And it never lets you forget the lessons that you learned while you were there.
But she loves it and would not give it up for anything. I could not have paid for the experience my daughter has had as a Tejas rider.
If somebody asked me if I'd rather own the Dallas Cowboys or be a part of the Tejas Riders, it'd be hands down Tejas Riders.